It is time for the game and the episode of the Buckeye Fever Podcast. That's a lot of these. I'm Dave Holmes. Thank you so much for joining us. It is the best time of year, except for the last 3 years in which it's been the worst time of year. Ohio State getting ready to play Michigan this Saturday noon in the shoe, the way it should be, the way it was always meant to be. I love this Thanksgiving weekend tradition. It's the best. And I know the last few years have been very tough on Buckeye fans, but I will say this. Just appreciate that you have this game. Because there aren't many people that have a game like this. Texas, Oklahoma think they have one. Alabama and Auburn think they have one. There are so few rivalries that have this level of prestige. I think it's at the top of the list. I think Duke-Carolina basketball is right below it as far as the best rivalries in college sports. And what it means is careers are altered. If Ohio State loses a game to Penn State, careers are not altered. You lose to Michigan, careers are altered. And the very first episode of the Buckeye Fever Podcast, I talked about Ryan Day. And I said Ryan Day has one of the most interesting legacies in Ohio State history because he's 4 or 5 plays away from having a statue built of him. And yet, he's had this reputation of not winning the big games. Game against Oregon earlier this year, the Peach Bowl, the playoff game against Clemson, 3 straight to Michigan. And he's got this unbelievable record. Players love him. Recruiting's as good as it's ever been. And yet, he's lost 3 in a row in this game. And that's why I think Ryan Day's legacy is so interesting, because I've always said that I think the haters have a case they can stand on, and the supporters have a case they can stand on. For the record, I am pro Ryan Day. But this game means everything. And I don't mean this game in generality. I mean this game on Saturday. Not the game, this game. This game means everything to Ryan Day. Because in this town, you cannot lose 4 in a row to those guys. You can't do it. Especially not when you're a 21-point favorite at home. This is a bad Michigan team. We're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. You can't lose this game. And I think Ryan Day gets it. Here's what he said earlier this week about this game.
You know, this game is a war. And anytime there's a war, there's consequences and casualties, and then there's the plunder and the rewards that come with it.
Okay, so when Ryan Day says war has casualties, let's be clear about what he means there, or at least what I read into it. Brady Hoke was a casualty of war. Brady Hoke could not beat Ohio State. He had bad teams. He lost his job over it. And I think Ryan, who's been very candid about how sad the last few years have been for him and his family. He said earlier this week on the Coach's Show, he said, besides losing my father at a young age, and if you don't know the story there, Ryan's father died by suicide when Ryan was a kid. He said, besides that moment, this is about as sad and has been about as hard of a thing to go through for my family that I can ever remember. It takes its toll on you to lose 3 in a row. I don't think Ryan wants to lose this 4th game. I think professionally speaking, if I were his agent, I would advise against it. I will just say that. Whether that's fair or not is a conversation for another day. I just think that's the reality here in Columbus at this point. Because the last time Michigan beat Ohio State 4 straight years was 1988 to 1991. It has been a while. And the next legacy to talk about is the legacy of these seniors. Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau, Travion Henderson, Emeka Ibuka, Denzel Burke. You came back for this moment. Aside of NIL, for sure. But you came back for this moment. Because it has been unthinkable for 30 years for a class to graduate 0-4 against Michigan. This is a huge game for these guys. Now, on the good side, this Michigan team is pretty bad. I mean, they're 6-5. They're pretty bad. Worst Michigan team in a long time. And I know some people, the Ryan Day haters, are going to say, yeah, if he beats this Michigan team, who cares? They're bad. Well, you know what? Who cares if Michigan's bad? Not my problem. Not Ryan Day's problem. Urban Meyer, who, by the way, is going to join us here in a few minutes, Urban Meyer went 7-0 against Michigan. And you know what? A couple of those teams were pretty bad. Those last couple Brady Hoke teams were pretty bad. And a couple of the Harbaugh teams were pretty average. Not Urban's problem. Not Ryan Day's problem. Not my problem. Who cares if Michigan's bad? Who cares? And on the other side, you know what? Even if Michigan's not as good as Ohio State, I'm old enough to know when that didn't matter either. Because if you are, I'm 42, if you are at least 37 and over, you remember the 1990s, and you remember what it was like to be better than Michigan and lose to them year after year after year. So forgive me if I'm not going to just expect the Buckeyes to roll. I think they'll win, and I think they should win comfortably. But I've seen a few things in my life, and I'm not going to take this team for granted. I don't think Ryan Day's team will as well. Got to win this game. Got to win this game. Didn't have to beat Oregon. Didn't have to beat Indiana. Didn't have to beat Penn State. Got to win this game. This is the year the Buckeyes get it back on track. Well, there's nobody better to talk Michigan week than Mr. 7-0, former Ohio State head coach Urban Meyer. And Urban, 7-0 now is almost line item 1 on your resume. So it's kind of a simple question, but also complex. How did you do it? What about the Urban Meyer way led to 7-0?
I think every coach would tell you the first thing is players. You know, I inherited an incredible group from the Jim Tressel and Luke Fickell regime, and then we recruited really good players. The other thing would be staff. The alignment of our staff was phenomenal from day one. And then the emphasis, I would say. So it's players, coaching staff, and then alignment that, you know, that's when you interview someone, when you recruit someone, the rivalry game is going to come up in the first sentence or two. And the understanding that it's not another game. And I always tell people, it's not a big game. Quit saying that. It's not a big week. Quit saying that. It's a way of life. And if you treat it that way, then it's really important.
You know, I look at your tenure and I think, how many could he have won? Now, you might disagree with me. I don't think you would have gone 48-0. At some point, they would get you. You might disagree with that. Do you ever fantasize about how many do you think you could have rattled off in a row against those guys?
No, I look back now that I'm in the reflection point in my life where I can look back and, you know, we had last night at a John Hicks Unverfirth House celebration or charity event. And it's been 10 years since the national championship. And I sat with Jacoby Bourne, Evan Spencer, Braxton, and, you know, just a bunch of players. And I can just look in their eyes. And of the things that was accomplished, including the national championship, I'm not sure 7-0 doesn't beat that.
You know, I know when you did your Fox gig, when you first started, hesitant to say Michigan, you try to walk around it, say Wolverine, some other things. You still love being a villain up there. Do you embrace the hatred you get in Ann Arbor even to this day?
It's more, I mean, it was the first year they were throwing things out of the stands. The 100, whatever they hold, 105, 110,000 people booed at once when I walked in. It was vile. It was nasty. Now it's more, I'm old news, so we have fun with it. I have fun back with them. You know, the one thing you can never say is I disrespect them, because I respect the Wolverines. I don't like them, but I respect them, and I always will.
I want to ask you about a rumor. In 2018, your final game, you're up 62-39. I believe it was Demetrius Knox that got hurt on that final drive. You know, in my mind, I always thought, is Urban going to try to score here? And if he does, will he go for 2 to hang 70 on them? Were you actually going to try to hang 70 if things go differently?
I can't remember exactly who said it over the headset. And by that time, I knew that was my last game. You know, if we would have not won it, I would have probably come back. But, you know, a chance to, you know, I'm a Buckeye, I'm an Ohio boy. It goes 7-0 against the Wolverines, and a really good Wolverine team, the way we played that day. And it was brought to my attention that, you know, if we score here at 68, you go for 2 and you put 70 on them. I'll never deny it, but I'll never accept it, because Demetrius got hurt the next play, and we had a Big Ten championship game to win in 7 days. So we knelt on the ball the next couple snaps.
Now that you're out of it, this 3-game losing streak, do you feel it? Do you feel the emotions of this, even though you're not the current head coach?
I'm very close to Ryan Day. I'm very close to. I'll always be a Buckeye. I'm forever indebted to Ohio State. Give me the opportunity and born and raised a Buckeye, and as Chris Carter said, born and bred till I die. So I'm a fan now, but I'm also a very invested fan.
How do you think Ryan's doing with this? I mean, earlier this week he admitted that this has been next to losing his father at a young age. He said the hardest thing he's ever dealt with. How do you think he's handling this, and do you think he's going to be able to pull them out of it?
He's handled it better than I would. I give him credit. After that game and then the bowl game, and then, you're talking about, one of the most talented teams ever to put on a uniform. And obviously the head coach is responsible for that. And, they went out and played their hearts out at Oregon. They came back, made a couple adjustments, and played their best game against Penn State. And then last week they played well too. So I think he's doing great. But some people roll their eyes when you hear, coach say that other than losing a family member, they don't really understand the Ohio State job, And I'm going to say this on Big Noon. Now that I know, there's no other job like this. I look at USC, Oklahoma, Florida, Texas, Alabama, Tennessee, the team up north. Ohio State, I can't even imagine what it would be like losing 5 games here. I know what it's like to lose 1 or 2, and it's awful. It's, hey, how's it going? What happened? What do you mean what happened? We just went 13-1. So it's a rugged job, but Ryan's doing a hell of a job.
Now you're on Fox Noon, Big Kickoff. We also have you on a podcast this year. You started the Triple Option with Rob Stone and Mark Ingram. How has the podcast world been? I love hearing it. You guys do a great job.
Yeah, they approached us, and I said, no. I'm like, no interest. I didn't know much about podcasts. And another company said, you want to do a radio show for, a couple hours a day? I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And then I got to pick my host, pick our producer, and they said 1 day a week. And I said, I picked Rob Stone and Mark Ingram, who are 2 of my closest friends out there, and we have a ball doing it. So I guess we're in the podcast world now.
Yeah, we all are, apparently. This week you guys have A.J. Hawk and Charles Woodson on. I remember talking to former Ohio State head coach John Cooper, and I said, what's your biggest recruiting regret? And he said, the day Charles Woodson, an Ohio guy out of Fremont, committed to Michigan, he said, I told my assistants, this is how you lose your job in this city. Do you have a story like that, Urban, someone that you lost to Michigan that you thought, oh, this is not good?
Well, Jake Butt's a friend of mine. I really didn't know much about him. He's a skinny little tight end from Pickerington that, we just didn't recruit very hard. And that was right when I got hired. And so I think he was a hell of a player. The Jabril Peppers we went after, and Rashawn Gary, we went after really hard, but they were kind of tied to their coach, who ironically took a job at the Wolverines. What do you know? Trying to think who else. Oh, the safety from Oklahoma. We went after really hard, but we knew every player they recruited. I had a Wolverine board in my staff room that I checked it daily, who they're recruiting, and if they get them, that coach who recruits that area is going to have to explain to me why we lost them. The good thing is we lost some, but not a lot.
Yeah, that's the peek behind the curtain. That's how you go 7-0. I'll get you out on this one. All right. I think they're going to win this game. They're 21-point favorites. There's talent gap. They're at home. But still, after the last few years, how worried should Buckeye fans be about this game?
We're very worried. It's a rivalry game. For anybody that's not worried, you're not really understanding the game of football and rivalry games. There's a great history, and A.J. Hawk tells a story when they were unranked and they went and beat a Wolverine team that was highly ranked. Charles Woodson, same. I had them tell the story about when they weren't very good and they came back and beat the Buckeyes. So the minute someone says the Wolverines don't have good players, you're out of your mind. They have great players. They're coming, you don't have a 3-year run like they had. And first of all, they'll always have great players. They're always going to have good coaches. So that's what makes this game, to me, different than all. And it goes back to the 10-year war with Woody and Bo, that the immense respect, but immense hatred. And no one relax. There is no point spread. It's a rivalry game. And if we play defense like we did against Indiana, we should win, but that's an if. They're a good team. They're not, the record is not indicative of their talent level. They have good players. They're, had some injury issues. Their quarterback issue has been a problem all year. It seems like they've settled in on the quarterback, Davis Warren. So To answer your question a long way, absolutely be uncomfortable and go win the game.
Great stuff as always from Urban Meyer, Mr. 7-0. Coming up next here on the Buckeye Fever Podcast, another member of the Fox broadcast team joins us. Joel Klatt joins us after the break. This weekend is the game. Ohio State against Michigan, nothing like it. And we're here with one of the men calling the games for Fox on Big Noon Kickoff, Joel Klatt. So, Joel, first off, just favorite OSU-Michigan memory? Is there a moment over the years where you kind of had to pinch yourself? I can't believe I'm part of this.
Yeah, I mean, the first one that I called is obviously one that comes to mind. And then after that, I always hesitate talking about the moments that I love from this game, because inevitably one of the fan bases are like, of course you love that moment. It was a success for this team. So I'll try to give two. I thought that in I believe it was the 18 game. Yeah, the 2018 game. And Michigan came in as a favorite, and Ryan Day's game plan was just like firing on all cylinders, and they scored a bunch of points, and the adjustments that they made, that was an incredibly fun game to call. And then the 21 game, because of the environment, the snow falling, the history of what had gone on, the monkey on the back of Jim Harbaugh, that moment was a pretty cool moment to broadcast. So how about that? One from each team of success that each of them have had.
All right, that's a good segue. So this is my 17th Ohio State-Michigan game. Luckily, when I'm born in Ohio and I'm a sports anchor in Ohio, I don't have to toe the line like you do. Yeah. I love watching even a guy like Kirk Herbstreit, who's an Ohio State guy. I see fans go at him all the time. You get it too. What do you make of the fact that after every game, everyone swears you are for the other team?
Yeah. I love it. It's actually my wife's favorite thing as well. She'll go on social media until she'll take screenshots and like put up side-by-side comments that are literally like right next to each other. And one of them is like, you could not be more pro Ohio State. And then the next one is like, how do you love Michigan so much? And it's like, man, you just can't win. I think that if I see both of those, I'm doing my job. If I just see it one direction, in the back of my mind, I'd be like, well, I don't know, maybe I was a little bit too pro that team. So I generally want to see both fan bases upset.
No, I think look, we can all agree on one thing. Chris Collinsworth loves Patrick Mahomes. That's all we know in this world.
Yes, that's exactly right.
That's the meme I'm all about. Man. Okay, so what's a game preparation look like for you? What is kind of Monday leading up to Saturday of this game?
Yeah, I watch a lot of film, and for this game, I try to keep up with Michigan and Ohio State. One, I usually call a lot of their games, which obviously has taken place for the Buckeyes, but I want to watch every single snap that they've had all year long, and I'll do that. And then for me, it's a process of trying to build a game plan. And I put myself in the coach's shoes and try to think to myself, how would I attack the opposition? If I was Ohio State, how would I attack Michigan's defense? If I was Michigan's defense, how would I attack Ohio State's offense? So it's a lot of that thought. We obviously have our production calls. I do 3 podcasts during the week, and then all of a sudden I'm on a flight, and you're trying to finalize your notes and get ready for the game. It's a pretty intense week. Not only that week, but every week of the college football season, but certainly a process that I enjoy.
Okay, you've seen some of the backlash with these 6 straight noon games. I know you've seen the backlash because you've been on Twitter.
Not all of those 6 were big noon, though.
Exactly. Some have been Big Ten Network, but you've been out there like Braveheart on the front lines fighting this battle. Here's what's so funny about this, Joel, is people act like we hate the noon games, but then when it comes to this game, if you tried to move this game to prime time, Ohio State fans would lose their mind because for some reason this game is tradition noon. The other games are other noon. So what's your take here on noon kicks and why we love it so much for Michigan and then fans get weary about it for other games?
Because in all of college football history, college games were played at noon. Yeah. I mean, that's the truth. I know people don't want to hear that. And I wasn't trying to defend what we do and the path that we've carved out at Fox, as much as just explain, we are contractually obligated to do what we're doing. And the Big Ten signed off on that, and Ohio State signed off on that. And that's how they're paid. The dollars that they're paid is because there's 3 premium windows of Big Ten football on network television. It's no different than the SEC going all in with ABC, and now what do they have? 3 network windows. That's the only way that it's financially feasible for a network to pay the dollars to these conferences and then thus these programs in these schools is by having a premium window. And it just so happens that in the Big Ten, ours is contractually noon. So as soon as we get any game that we can choose, it has to go at noon. And really on Twitter, that was all I was trying to explain. And everyone was like acting like I was fighting you off and telling you that you were wrong. I'm not telling you that you're wrong.
People are so rational, Joel. They're rational on Twitter.
I'm just explaining what the process is and how it landed like it did.
You know, it's funny from a players and coaches standpoint, they all love it.
They love it.
They love it. And Urban Meyer used to always say he loved noons because he didn't like tapping his foot all day until 8 p.m. He wants to get up, kick the ball off, and go. I do want to ask you about
the
Gus
other
Johnson.
one, just really quickly. The other one that I find fascinating is when they're like, you know, Fox and Joel Klatt is ruining our recruiting. You're number one in the country in recruiting right now. Like, I'm sorry, it doesn't seem to be affecting the recruiting.
Yes, if only Brian Hartline could get a good wide receiver because of all these new games.
Geez, you know, we only got the best player in the country last year. What are we doing?
If only. Thanks for coming, Jeremiah Smith. So I want to ask you about Gus Johnson. So love Gus. I used to love him when you do March Madness games. I was excited when he got the big noon. What's it like to call a game with Gus's energy level? Because I personally love it. I think he adds so much to it.
Well, I mean, obviously, you know, and his excitement is palpable in the booth like it is on the air. And so it gets me fired up. I remember the first time 10 years ago when I was doing a game with him. It was actually Texas Cal down in Austin. Jared Goff was playing against, I think it was Gerard Hurd from Texas or something like that. But he went full Gus for the first time with me in the booth. And I was like in awe. You know, I had goosebumps and everything. And I can remember all of those moments. I think that the most underappreciated thing about Gus is that he does not go to 10 all the time. Yeah. And some people want him there all the time, and they think that every touchdown should be Gus on 10, but he saves it for special moments. And that's what makes those moments even better, is that they're unique, and he doesn't go there. I always say this, I think every play-by-play guy or every great play-by-play guy needs levels. And generally speaking, play-by-play guys today have two levels. They have their normal call, and then the shouting call. Gus has like 6 or 7 levels that he can go to, which makes the top ones even more special. And his timing and obviously pacing is second to none.
It's funny you say that. When I was an anchor at ESPN, I was 22 years old. And the first time I met with a talent coach, they said, you come in every highlight at a 9 or a 10. And they said, ideally, you have to start at 5 so you can go down to 2 and up to 9. And a lot of people don't get that. I do want to ask you about Ryan Day. Okay, a lot of football still left. We're not sure how the whole bracket's going to shape out or any of that. But from his legacy, I mean, you know, Joel, I've always said this about Ryan Day. He's 3 or 4 plays away from build him a statue outside the shoe.
Yeah, that's correct.
And yet he's now teetering on an almost must-win game for his legacy because you just can't lose 4 in a row in this town. So what do you make of, you know, I've said Ryan is such a fascinating because the playoff game against Clemson was 1 or 2 bad breaks away. The Peach Bowl against Georgia is maybe a Marvin Harrison target and a missed kick away. He's so close to being right there with Tressel and Urban, and yet he's not. So how much does Ryan Day need this one in your mind?
You know, I don't sit on that like he has to win like others do. And the reason is because I feel like this is going to sound a better student of history. Yeah. What you will see in college football history is that guys don't win early in their career. I'm talking about national championships. And what you see is, generally speaking, they build into year 6, 7, 8, where then they break through and win national championships. And some of the guys actually took longer. Bowden took longer. Osborne took longer. You know, like, so there's some legendary guys that went 12, 15, 18, 19 years before breaking through and actually winning a national championship. So Ryan is doing what he should do, which is give yourself a chance. And I don't come down as hard on that as others do. I understand the fan base at Ohio State, and I understand the Michigan rivalry. But the truth is what you just said. There's a few snaps from him playing for other national championships, winning a national championship. You make the kick against Georgia. Marvin doesn't get hurt. You probably beat Georgia. You probably win a national championship. Last year, you're one snap away on the road against the eventual national champion. They've put themselves in position to have top-line success, and they will eventually. I firmly believe that.
Yeah, it's interesting because, he's been so close. And sometimes I hear Buckeye fans say, well, if you can't beat Michigan, yada, yada. Look at what Kirby Smart's doing. I'm like, the guy that can't beat Alabama? Sometimes we are so ethnocentric in our college football that we can't see the entire country as a whole.
And Kirby went to Tuscaloosa this year. And what did he do? They lost to Alabama. So like it happens to everybody.
Yeah. Well, Joel, thanks so much. Best of luck this week. It's going to be fun. Make sure you call it right down the middle like I know you will, okay?
That's right. Hate on both sides. That's all I want to see.
We will be lighting you up on Twitter, and hopefully Michigan does the same. Appreciate you, man.
You got it.
Hey, what a star-studded show this was. Thanks again to Urban Meyer, to Joel Klatt. Enjoy the game. We find out, will the Buckeyes beat the Maize and Blue? And will they go back finally to the Big Ten Championship game at Lucas Oil Stadium? We're about to find out Saturday at noon. I'll see you back here next week for another edition of the Buckeye Fever Podcast.